All right, comparative. Today we're going to go over just the briefest of history of Mexico politically, really since the Constitution of 1917. And we're going to tackle Unit 1. So we're going to be tackling political systems, regimes, and governments, and some of those key issues there as well. So, normally we would take a little bit longer going over the history of these countries, but you don't have the attention span for that in a video, let's be honest. So, we talked yesterday or last video about the colonial impact that Spain had on Mexico, especially when it came to economic decisions moving forward in the 20th century. Mexico has a rich history of rebellions, actually, and revolutions. Just some highlights. In 1821, that's when Mexican independence goes down from Spain. That is not Cinco de Mayo, by the way. Mexican independence is in the fall. And moving forward, there you really have some ethnic cleavages as well from independence. You have, as the book pointed out, the mestizos, the Amerindians, and then people of Spanish descent. So you had the Spanish descent or Europeans. You had the Amerindians, which were the indigenous population, which we'll hit on later on, especially in the southern regions when we get into the Zapatistas. And then the mestizos were the kind of local power elites, and that would be mixed descent of the Spanish and the Amerindian. 1917 is when the real revolution goes down in Mexico, and that is the Constitutional Revolution from 1910 to 1917. This is really kind of like still an anti-European revolution. The Spanish and the people that were still in charge were seen as too liberal, actually, in Mexico. So this constitutional revolution was actually more of a conservative movement moving forward. They wanted more rule of law, but they wanted to limit the power of the Catholic Church as well. That's going to be a big thing in the Constitution. In fact, just some highlights that you should know of the Constitution of 1917 moving forward would be that it does limit the Catholic Church. It really was supposed to prevent future dictatorships, although the PRI will emerge just fine as well. We will see here. They established a federal republic. They set up the policy of the sexenio, which is no re-election for the executive. So you're going to have a 1 6-year term. There's a lot of land reform, so a lot of egalitarian movements on land reforms in the ejidos, I believe. And then it is a nationalistic movement as well. So not only were they limiting the power of the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church was seen as a European structure, kind of going back to some previous articles that we read, but also foreign entities, foreign countries had restrictions put on them for owning land, owning businesses, everything like that. So those are that's kind of a step towards that import substitution that we talked about. Banning foreign entities so you will be in charge of your economy moving forward, and then, things will play out from there. So that's really kind of like the briefest history here. So civil society is pretty rich in Mexico, right? Rebelling against the Spanish, rebelling against even anything from 1821 when decolonization happens to 1917 to establish this more revolutionary mindset. And you never really get full democracy though, because by the late 1920s, the PRI has become the dominant party in Mexico. And basically, the book talked about the caudillos, all these strong men, your Pancho Villas, your Emilio Zapatas. We don't really use the word warlord anymore, but the strong men in those regions kind of working together for support and control. And what they did is they started setting up this system where through the PRI, these strong military leaders would have a turn and then turn it over to a successor, kind of a hand-picked successor. But this is the interesting thing. No person under the era of the PRI dominance, which is the late 1920s, I've got 1929, up through 2000, nobody stays longer than the 6-year term set down by the sexenio in the Constitution. So you have a dictatorship that follows constitutionalities. That's going to set the stage for them to fall, right? We're going to see other constitutional things as well that encourages a dissenting party, pretty much, which will be the PAN we will see. So the PRI is going to be a one-party rule from 1929 up until 2000. And that, by definition, is a dictatorship. So for most of the 20th century, Mexico was under a one-party dictatorial rule. And the PRI was in power longer than the Chinese Communist Party has been, I think, still at this point. So they had 71 years in power. So, if we want to tackle some real quick highlights from Unit 1, Political Systems, Regimes, and Government, which you guys hit on with your state regime government triangle, democratization versus authoritarianism. Mexico was authoritarian for those 70 years leading up, but democracy was encouraged. People are voting. Yes, some of the elections, many of them were seen as rigged. In the ballot boxes, people were disenfranchised by the PRI, but rival political parties like the PAN and later on the PRD, which we will talk about, leads to that democratization movement, right? Sources of power and authority are really going to be the Constitution of 1917. That really is the source of all power that's there. You have sorry, losing my train of thought here. It is a federal system, constitutional federal republic, and it really has become that republic since the downfall of the PRI. So that's another thing that provides the current Mexican government legitimacy, is that it has moved from that one-party dictatorship to a multi-party functional federal republic. Yes, with some problems going on, but that are being addressed. Remember, you need so many years of a successful transition of peaceful power to be a full consolidated democracy. Mexico is not there yet. Obviously, they have a lot of corruption going on, battling drug cartels, dealing with other internal factors, the Zapatistas and other indigenous people that the system is trying to provide for. So PRI dominates till 2000. In 2000 and in 2006, you have two presidents elected from the PAN, which we'll sketch out where these parties fall on the spectrum a little bit later on. And then in 2012, you actually get a PRI president elected again, which scared a lot of people, actually. They thought the PRI was going to be back for a while. But then in 2018, you get just political craziness, and you get this guy AMLO, Obrador, who was elected. He lost a couple times through the PRD. He creates his own new party, the Moreno Party, and he was able to dominate in the election in 2018. So he will be there until 24, right? And then he will be term limited out based on that. So the political stability right now, we're seeing that come up through the peaceful transition of power from the PRI to the PAN in 2000, from the PAN to the PRI in 2012, and from the PRI to Obrador and the Morena Party in 2018. So if you're looking at the state regime government triangle, your institutions would be, you have a president, you have the Congress, you have the judiciary branch, the military is under civilian control, very much like ours. You have a very big bureaucracy, a lot of corruption stemmed from that. Other major institutions would be your political parties going on there as well. The regime, that middle section in our triangle, currently is a federal republic. There is a lot of problems at some of the state levels, as some states are unable to deal with the drug cartels. And then the government currently would be President Obrador, we call him AMLO, those are his initials, under the party of the Morena Party. So that's just kind of a quick look at Unit 1 as we start to tackle Mexico each day here. So tomorrow I'll come back and we'll have a sketch out of at least the presidency aspect for Unit 2. Thanks, guys.